Welcome to the 24th week after Pentecost. It is Thursday, November the 7th, 2024. This is the Manna at the Tap podcast, where we as a community actively seek the spiritual nourishment our souls crave. The daily lectionary reading we explore together is the Manna, designed to nurture our spiritual growth and provide the sustenance our souls need. I'm Gloria, your fellow traveler on this spiritual journey, and together we share insights and interpretations from these readings that enrich our spiritual lives. Today, we're continuing our journey through the book of Ruth. Just some background so far. Naomi, her husband, and her two sons left Bethlehem and journeyed to Moab looking for food because of a famine in Israel. But shortly after arriving there, her husband died, and then her two sons married Moabite women. Tragedy struck again when her two sons also died. When Naomi heard a rumor in Moab that the Lord had again provided bread in Bethlehem, she started to return home accompanied by her two daughters-in-law. However, she changed her mind about taking them to Bethlehem. She was able to convince Orpah to stay in Moab so she could find a new husband, but Ruth clung to Naomi, determined to remain until death parted them. They arrived at the beginning of the barley harvest. Naomi agreed with Ruth that she could find food for them by gleaning after the harvesters. And she found herself in the field of Boaz. He treated her kindly. He provided water and lunch for her. And that first day, she gathered about 30 pounds of grain, an extravagant amount. It surprised Naomi, and when she heard Ruth had been in Boaz's field, she let go of her lament and turned her words into abundant praise to the Lord, and she blessed Boaz. The harvest season was ending, leaving the two women in a precarious position. Naomi would seek permanent security for Ruth and ensure that things went well for her. Because in Naomi's mind, that meant Ruth needed a husband and a home. So she devised a sexually charged, risky nighttime encounter between Ruth and Boaz. In preparation for this encounter, Ruth removed her widow clothes, washed and perfumed herself, and put on new clothing befitting a woman eligible for marriage. In the night, Ruth approached Boaz on the threshing floor after he had gone to sleep. She removed the bed covering and waited for him to tell her what to do. He woke up, startled, and in the darkness wanted to know who the woman was. She named herself Ruth, and then she requested that he spread his covering over her as a sign that he would redeem her. The narrator does not tell us what happened during the darkness of night, but at early dawn, Boaz promised Ruth he would take care of the matter of the guardian redeemer who had first rights of refusal. Ruth was sent home to Naomi carrying 6 measures of barley, the price of a bride, sent by Boaz, who told her she should not return home empty to her mother-in-law. Naomi was anxious. Would Boaz marry Ruth, or would she have to marry an unnamed guardian redeemer? The lectionary reading is Ruth chapter 4, verses 1 to 10, and it's set at the city gate. Boaz is waiting for the nearer unnamed relative to come by. You see, the city gate is where legal proceedings were conducted. Boaz would have known the man's name, but he chose not to use it, only asking the man to come over for a conversation about Naomi selling the land belonging to Elimelech, her deceased husband. Boaz also invited 10 city elders to join them as he negotiated with the unnamed man. First, he offered the man the opportunity to redeem Elimelech's field. The man was willing to do that. Then Boaz added that Ruth the Moabite was part of the package. To buy the field, he also had to marry Ruth. This caught the unnamed man off guard. He said he couldn't do this because he would jeopardize his own estate. So he relinquished his rights and obligations as next of kin to Boaz. The unnamed man, the nearer relative, is law abiding, but he does not have hesed. That is, he does not go beyond what is required by law to provide for the needs of Ruth, Naomi, and their deceased husbands. He was unwilling to maintain the dead man's name by marrying Ruth, leaving him on the pages of Scripture as a no-name. Boaz received the blessings of the community for his willingness to marry Ruth. Naomi and Ruth no longer have anything to fear. Boaz has done what he promised that very day in the presence of the elders. And tomorrow we will conclude the story of Ruth in chapter 4, verses 11 to 17.